We're going to make a start. We do have a quorum, thankfully. So welcome to the committee, welcome to the public, welcome to the members, welcome to staff, and welcome to the Audit New Zealand team. We are expecting Councillor Kevin to join us online, so I'm guessing that he will get there when he does. But nonetheless, welcome to the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting for July. Matamata-Piako, Harry, would you mind opening our hui with kia, please? Kevin.
No, the way Marty, the Marty Gui, already, the cherry cup of me, he don't have carpet die, a month up. The whole of the Hebrew church with him, Maro, you don't know it much of pin, I have called by the account. By Matthew, I told you, Matthew, I touched one. Okay, no, he for Karia Matthew, if I probably I came out and Mahi, Timothy, him, Mahi, not for security. Kia whiwhi ai o ki mātou I tōre tōna ni te mei a whai tia nei e koe. Koe e kurai te tō mātou kai paura.
Kia ora Matamata-Piako, kia tū whare tō tātou hui. So I'm going to say welcome again to me, Adrian, Matamata-Piako, and Whaia Joanne. We are the quorum, so thank you very much for being here and for your engagement. Even though we do have Councillor Kevin that is going to join us online, my understanding is that doesn't count to the members of the quorum. So stay in your seats, people. I'll start with the apologies. So we have apologies from Deputy Mayor James Thomas and Councillor Bruce Dewhurst, and I guess partial apologies from Councillor Kevin Pippin. I will move. Can I please have a seconder?
I'll second.
We have Whaia Joanne seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, quorum carried. Thank you. Next, I don't believe that we have any urgent or additional business, so we are moving on. Any declarations of interest from the committee members in relation to today's committee papers? No. There are none. Project. Confirmation of the minutes for the 19th of March 2024 extraordinary meeting of our committee. Are there any items of accuracy that need to be adjusted?
Not that I can see.
Right. Mayor Adrian is moving. Now please have a seconder.
I'll second.
Whaia Joanne seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, quorum carried. Sure done. A little quick. Cup by tea. Now we are into the reports of the meeting, so I'll start with my chair's update. Just a few opening comments in relation to that report. It was great to see Kelly and Leslie especially in the movement that they are taking us on our risk management journey. So thank you very much to the team for all the work that they did to pull together a workshop for elected members and these committee members and staff members as well. I attended a couple of OAG audit and risk chair forums on cybersecurity and climate governance, and you can see some of the takeaways that I had within the report. I'll also mention that the OAG has recently released a publication on carbon targets, which will impact us in terms of the climate change information that is in LTP's consultation documents, annual reports, and any reports requiring or containing audit and assurance. So that's going to impact what that looks like for us in the future. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions. Kia ora.
The only question I had was around the climate governance issue in relation to what the government is or is not. I'm watching it change in front of me and I'm thinking, what's the impact for the council really?
So I don't know if we've got anyone from the team, so I'm happy to start off. So my understanding is there are 200 organisations across Aotearoa New Zealand that are currently mandatorily required to report on their carbon or climate information, and it's only a matter of time before central government and local government, especially organisations, will be required to meet those particular standards. And I think it's similar to a lot of other things. Whaia Joanne, we're going to have to wait to see what those standards are and then pivot our work to make sure that we achieve them.
Do you anticipate them dropping if Shane Jones is heading the particular portfolio?
Let's hope not. I think if anything that we've seen in relation to the coalition government is that change is happening and it's happening fast and it's requiring urgent consultation and feedback, and we're moving from bill to bill. So I think we just need to be prepared with what we're doing.
Sorry, Kevin's here.
Good morning, Councillor Gibbon. Just FYI,
Good
we're on
morning.
7.
Sorry, I just realised my mic was on.
Come on. It's good to know you're there. We're on item 7.1, which is the chair's update. We're just discussing climate. So we just need to be prepared, I guess. Is there anyone from staff that would like to comment?
Oh, yeah, I'll just add.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. I'll just add that we are obviously in LTP, there is the work around creation of policy. So at least we'll have a policy around climate change, and obviously acknowledging the journey. There's a river map of where it's heading and the thing that we need to do. So obviously with the risk of flooding is a significant one. So all those things are coming together, obviously with regional council work around flooding. So some of those direct things that we know, that you can understand. It's more at the moment what we can do ourselves, I think, is important. That some of that policy stuff probably sits up in another space. But I think importantly, it's the pragmatic side of council is what we can do from the policy and active, the things that we consider and the decisions that we make. I think is quite important. Don, you adding to that?
Renee may have something to add here. I don't know, but the AOG has certainly put out a directive that effectively means that climate change has to be embedded within the organisation's consideration of all the things we do, and they will be looking for evidence of that in the future. And we do have a working group. Kelly's team is leading that, and in fact, I believe you're meeting this Thursday, Kelly, too.
Yes, yeah. Anne's leading that group.
At this stage for you, it's really about knowing what you need to do and where the money is going to go and whether there's any impacts on your annual report. There's no mandatory requirement at this stage, but once you start getting into the space of greenhouse gas emissions reductions, we will start auditing those, and it's quite a complex audit process.
It excites us.
I think Paul just said yay. Goodbye. Is there any other questions? Otherwise, Mr. Gary, would you mind moving? Okay.
Yeah, second it. Thank you, Joanne. That's great.
Sure. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's been carried. Okay. Item 7.2, which is the Chief Executive update from Don.
Just briefly, today is the second day of our new financial year, of course, and the organisational review has kicked in with a whole range of matters that have been attended to support the new structure, the new positions, transactional things across all our financial and operational controls. And we're working on, of course, we've now got a new executive, with Dennis having retired last week. The new executive's fully in place, and there's a number of initiatives that Kelly and her team are leading around embedding cultural shift, both in terms of us as a new executive and also amongst our other tier managers and leaders. We're looking to encourage a cultural shift and to embed the new organisation. In the area of Three Waters, things are still happening. There's I think local government, there's a realisation that maybe something does need to happen, that the idea of trying to deliver $5 billion worth of capital over the next 10 years within the Waikato is probably going to be a bit of a stretch, and that maybe there's some advantage in looking at some other structural form that might be able to do that, and that's got a wee way to go yet. In the meantime, within this organisation, having, if you only remember, a short short 7 months ago, Three Waters was going to go. Well, it's not. And it's still going to be a few years before anything really happens. So in the meantime, we've got a number of work streams in Three Waters trying to improve our operational efficiency and manage risks. You know, in terms of the new environment, because there's nothing more certain that the regulator, Matamata-Piako and Regional Council, as a consequence, are starting to wind up their regulatory muscles. The project management system, which is all part of giving more capacity and clarity and transparency to how the organisation is doing, is on the agenda today, and I will talk to that. His team have direct responsibility for that. And you can have a chat there. You did mention policy reviews. Well, of course, there's a range of policy changes which are affecting us: RMA, fast track, Māori wards, a whole bunch of stuff that will potentially impact on our workload and work streams as well. I think that's all. I'm excited at the fact that our auditors are here today, of course, and that we think we've got a clean sign off. Yeah, albeit with some qualifications in the report. That's right. Well, no, not qualifications. You're right. Emphasis, material emphasis. Yeah. So that's it from me.
Good, John. Do we have any questions from the committee? Nailed it.
See, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I can just add, I think it's quite timely with a reorganisation, and I think there's a new energy with a reorg and an enthusiasm that I feel, and so yeah, I think we're putting ourselves while we've got challenges ahead of us perhaps and a lot of uncertainty still. I think Don's plan and with his team to future, take us into the future has been well, probably very timely, better late than never, and yeah, I think it puts us in a good position moving forward.
The only thing I want to say is, Don, do you have, or is it too early to have a new organisational structure that I might be able to?
No, not at all. Yeah,
okay.
Yes, of course you can have.
And what I do appreciate is how much work your staff have done going through. Like I think when I'm reading through this and writing notes, and you go through. What I do appreciate is the work that it's taken, and there were some questions further through the report that I want to ask about. How's the infrastructure coping, one with change, but also the amount of work that has been done with the changes that are going on. So I really appreciate how much your staff and what this council does.
Well, I'd just like to reiterate those comments, and then my focus in terms of comments will be on Three Waters. So from my perspective, as the time goes along and we're expected to deliver water services plans, and then the future shapes up in terms of what a CCO could look like across the Waikato or not, and how Matamata-Piako District Council will fit into that space. And I'm really keen on making sure that we keep an eye on what the risks are that poses. It's significant. You're talking about 5 billion. So yeah, we'd be remiss not to have a watching brief over that in this particular committee. Yeah, and also wanted to, and we'll get to it, but in the project management space, it's good to have that clarity for the pictures as well. So thank you for that. Other than that, can I please have a mover and seconder in terms of this information being received? So that Mr. Gary is moving and Five Million is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Good. We are on item 8.1 of the agenda, the LTP audit management report on the consultation document. And we have Nadia and Niall. Good.
morning, everyone. As you can see on your agenda, this is a report on the audit management report or the audit of the consultation document. And as you can see there, Audit New Zealand have made several recommendations, which are highlighted in the management report around the uncertainty over the capital delivery program, the proposed setting of an unbalanced budget, the quality of the information provided, improvements around the infrastructure strategy, updating of the asset management plans, or AMPs as they're often called, the significant assumptions, the asset data, and some controls. And they've been identified as urgent and necessary and given priority as set out. Yeah, I think we'll just leave it there in terms of introductory comments, and yeah, happy to take any questions. And of course, the audit team may want to comment as well.
Renee, do you have any open comments as well?
Yes, I just would like to say that so this report that's tabled in front of you was for the CD phase of the audit, the consultation document phase. We're actually here today to talk to you about the ought to be here available for the LTP stage of the audit, and maybe just to comment that process went really well and smoothly. So we'd just like to thank the team for the improvements that they've made and the way that they've really smoothed the way for the audit for the LTP. And also I'm happy to answer any specific questions around this report if there's any.
Any comments? What do you mean? Sorry, I keep looking at you, Don, because I'm looking for more numbers.
Yeah, well, I just got to thank my team for all the effort they put in, and I think in acknowledging some of the issues of material emphasis, we can understand audit's view on that, of course. That it's quite a reasonable view. I mean, we have other considerations we have to reflect on in terms of the way we place our capital propositions into the LTP, and we'll be making every effort to deliver on that, of course. But yes, naturally, history tells us that things happen and delay happen, of course. I think also in terms of the underlying information, I think that and I don't mean to be patronising, but I think both ourselves and the auditor perhaps had a difficult period to get through pre-Christmas with a major legislative change. And I know that AOG's office must have been working overtime as to what the heck are we going to do in terms of their responsibility in terms of auditing an LTP that for one moment wasn't going to have waters in it, and the next moment did have waters in it. And so there are a whole range of approaches that different organisations have accepted. I think it might have been Claudia who commented, I understand by through Manaya, or Claudia, I might have been quoting you, that I think we've probably put ourselves in a pretty good position by going early. Those that have chosen to go late may well by Christmas time of this year be regretting that. Good luck to them. But yes, I think there was a degree of disruption. I think too that there are some learnings for us, and I think that one of the things that Manaya and Lani commented to me is that we perhaps need to review the LTP as a living document as opposed to a once 3 yearly process, because it's so consuming. I think probably, and this is not a criticism, and I know it's probably the OAG sets the parameters for audit. I think some of the detail and some of the information and some of the areas we audit felt that they needed to have a look. Surprised us a little bit. We respect that, and we do try to cooperate, and we grit our teeth and smile and hope that we're still going to be friends at the end of it. And of course, we're not friends, but friendly. And I think overall, though, you know, we're happy where we've got to, and we think, you know, that we can do, obviously we can do things better. Obviously, we'll be looking to sit down with audits, you know, over the coming year and make sure that we know, you know, how we might best serve their needs as well as our own.
Any comments, Committee?
If I have to comment, don't I? It's no surprise that this has been a really challenging LTP to do. We made the conscious decision to keep the waters in right from day one. And I think that's turned out to be very much the key decision to make. I think it sits alongside it being quite a pragmatic council. And so I employed our council for just picking up the ball, and these long-term plans are only based on the information that you have at the time, and unfortunately at that time there was a lot of uncertainty, and as time goes by we've gradually got more information now, but there's still uncertainty ahead of us. At least we've been pragmatic in our approach. While it might be optimistic, and obviously with doing the pre-consultation, all that work, you know, acknowledged that it was hard, perhaps wasn't as good as it could have been at that point in time. I think we made the best fist of it as an organisation, acknowledging the staff in January, putting in a lot of work when everybody else was on holiday. So I just really want to acknowledge that, acknowledge the team for the effort they've done, and where we've landed. You know, I think we can be pretty proud of. While we have challenges, I think we can be proud of what we've achieved and staying the course, because it puts us in a better position for the next 12 months. I can't think what it would look like if we delayed and done an enhanced annual plan and then be doing a long-term plan later this year. And yeah, with everything else that's standard, you know, I like to stick to my lane. It's me. And this is the process, and we make the best fist of it at the time, and I think it's paying off. There'll be a few fish hooks come up, no doubt, in the next couple of years, but that's when you worry about that in the next couple of years. This document is a forecast. It is an LTP we have to do each year, but it is a forecast, so things might change. Who knows? But yeah, thanks to the team. Really do acknowledge the work that's been done.
Yeah, I can see that Councillor Kevin's got a question, but I just I love the proactive comments in relation to the LTP in general. I just want to remind us that this particular point is in relation to the audit of the consultation documents and whether we have any comments on that one as well. But we said, but that's all good. But Kevin, over to you.
I was just going to reiterate what Don said about it becoming a living document, and how much perhaps that process might be timely. Just to keep looking at it as because it's the very first thing that a new councillor comes in and starts doing, and it's really difficult for them. And I'm assuming there was some gnashing of teeth from staff as we went through the LTP as well, changing things that they'd already put into the system and what have you. But look, audit I imagine has been difficult to deal with in a lot of respects, but I know Don and his team are there for the best interests of us and for the community. So thank you guys all sitting down the back of the room. We apologize for any extra work we put on you, but appreciate what you do.
Thanks, Kevin.
In relation to your last, in appreciation of your last comment, Janet, now you showed me a table and you put urgent on it, and I, my brain goes, okay, so when are we doing it? How is this timed in and everything? And I, in respect to your comment, and then looking through the rest of the documents, and I was thinking the kind of pressure that puts on the staff and the council overall, and how are we, I guess when I go through the rest of the report, I look at and think about the changes the government are making or not making changing their mind about even now and the impact of that. So I'm aware of that. But once you show me urgent, I'm thinking, okay, well, when are we doing the urgent stuff first? And how does that, when we went into that training workshop, align with the priorities that we had and looked at overall? Are they different? I also have to admit that I'm teaching myself as well as I go through, because I think unbalanced budget, and then I keep looking through all the information and suddenly understanding the impact that has on just everything. Not only that, the capital program and everything like that. And I'm thinking, oh God, I'm never coming to work for the council. But yeah, the highlight for me in this part of the report is you identify the urgency and what kind of time frame does that put on us. I know it's going from LTP to LTP and stuff like that, but just the pressure it puts on the staff to deliver.
I'm happy to have a crack at that just to start. So I agree with you, Joanne. From my sense, the ones that were urgent were requiring us to do work so that we were in good stead for the actual LTP.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't think that we had any choice but to do that. And I think to Renee's earlier comment, that's probably why the audit of the LTP went as smoothly as it did, because of the information from the audit on the consultation document. But that's just, okay, I'm seeing nodding, so that's a good thing. Yeah, sorry, did that answer, or did you want further comment from audit or anyone else, Joanne?
No, I just that was the, if I'm trying to be helpful, it's kind of trying to pick the, well, don't need to pick it, tells you how urgent it is, but trying to balance that up in a practical way about then how do you turn that into the work program, how do you turn that into, and I have to say, I keep thinking, what are the other councils doing? Like, how does that compare? How are we comparing against, and what might we learn from what else you're seeing in terms of setting up the parameters for us? So.
Basically, anything that you'd like to comment on, and it's okay if you're not.
I can comment. I think there's I think across what we've seen in this round, the LTP, we see a lot of similar things. It is a lot of pressure on councils where you do have resource constraints. You've got people with so many hours in the day, they still have to do their day job. And this is a massive project to run. So we do see a lot of similar, type of things coming out of these LTP audits. Just again, as I said earlier, just absolutely commendable, the team. This was at the CD phase and how they've addressed all of this in the little short period we had between this and when we audited the LTP. So most of these things have been handled, but very good point. It's not that this council is the only one struggling with these type of things. It was across the ones that we deal with as an office.
Sure. I might ask a couple of questions and make a few comments. So Niall, because you're presenting, is there anything further that the Risk and Assurance Committee can do to support in relation to this process? Never mind the recommendations that are in there already, but is there anything else that the team would like to see this committee do to provide that additional support or assurance?
Firstly, I'll just say that just in our research, what we've seen from the councils around the Waikato is that MPDC was one of the few that had an audited consultation document. So we were standing quite apart from the approach given to other councils, which they either didn't have an audited consultation document, and in some cases have deferred their LTPs until the following year. But in terms of the recommendations, nothing strikes out to me in particular, but probably just some consideration around the role of the committee and how the committee wants to be involved in the LTP and how it can play that role in terms of assurance. It would be good to just explore that and make sure that we're fulfilling that going forward, so that we're meeting your expectations and
And how do we see that happening now? Would that be a Hui with team and myself as an example?
Yeah, I'm in your hands as to how, but I think particularly just reflecting on the comments before, if we're wanting to build this into something that is a more evolving and a living document, how we build that in. But yeah, I'm happy to take guidance from the committee in terms of the best way to progress that discussion.
Thank you. And the only other comments that I would make is I think that the recommendations were reasonable. I did not like the formatting part of the recommendation at all, but I understand that that's a process that the Audit New Zealand team need to go through in terms of signing off their audit papers, but I just wanted to say it anyway. And then I'm looking forward to whether there's anything that's happening in the OEG or the Audit New Zealand space from a sector perspective to understand the balance of the resources that are dedicated versus the output that's provided, or even the assurance that's provided, or the value that's added to the people that are the readers of the long-term documents of the long-term plan and also the consultation document. Not looking for a response in relation to that, but yeah, I did not like formatting, just saying. And then also thank you for providing more information on the recommendation relating to committees and making sure that as committees, if we do have additional things that we would like the team to do, that we ensure that those are reflected in the recommendations. Sure. So the recommendation that we have in front of us is that we receive the report as well as provide feedback. So I don't think that the feedback really amounted to anything that would necessarily need to be noted unless we want an action dial that I catch up with the team in relation to how this committee can support the process moving forward on the next one.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, you could also capture that, and with our further agenda item is around the debrief from this process, so you could capture that there. But equally happy if you want to record that here. You may also note as a committee that the actions have been followed through on. The recommendations here have been reflected into our final LTP.
Cool. Excellent. And I got that sense from Renee's comment when she said that it went smoothly. So when we get recommendations about the CapEx program delivery and also the unbalanced budget, that it would have tracked through to the next one. Excellent. Thank you. So the recommendation is that we receive the report, we provide feedback, and we note that the recommendations related to the LTP have been actioned by the team. Is that what you're meaning?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
The CD,
Yeah.
consultation.
The
Draft.
recommendations in relation to the consultation document that relate to the, are you getting this? No.
Maybe just the recommendations within the audit management report.
Yeah.
On the consultation document.
On the consultation document have been addressed. Covers.
I'll move.
Can I have a second of please?
And I'll second it.
Mayor Adrian is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Hi, team. It's a new world for us with these fancy recommendations. So, are you okay, Bridget? She's got it. Excellent. We are moving on to 8.2. I'm guessing you're staying with us, Niall, which is the LTP debrief.
Yes, thank you. So this one really follows on from the audit management report. So this report is an internal debrief that was undertaken of the process up to the commencement of public consultation. We will do another debrief which looks at the consultation phase and the preparation of the final LTP and how that final audit process has been, and we can report that to the committee at a later date. We essentially asked staff, what worked well, the key staff, the project members of the project team, what went well during the process, noting that it was quite extended, what didn't go so well, and what the opportunities were for improvement. And you can see there the comments that have been made in relation to the core components of the LTP. And similar to the style of the audit management report, what we've just done is identify the complexity and priority that's attaching to some of those recommendations, noting that some of them will take a bit more work and are longer term things we want to work on, but there are some things we can do more immediately and are in the shorter term. So yeah, I won't go through all of the comments that have been made. You'll see there that we also had some discussion with the audit team and just captured some additional comments that they had that really just sit alongside that management report item. Yeah, happy to leave it there. I also would just draw the committee's attention to the management statement that's provided at the front of that debrief report. And that's come out of our executive team that really wanted just to highlight the challenging nature of this plan and noting the hard work by the council. So yeah, just draw that to the committee's attention, but happy to take any questions.
I guess I just wanted to note, I think, as we discussed in the previous paper, the efforts on behalf of staff, I think it came through really strongly in this particular paper. Comments like challenging process, staff going over and above, but just me as like to put that in a car, get to my identity to part of being part of it. So just me to that. Thank you for that, mate. One of the things that I did pick up on was the comments around duplication of processes of workshops for council members. So yeah, can I leave that there? We do tend to duplicate quite a bit in our workshops.
Any other comment?
Sensible.
Yeah. I'll just say, to reiterate again, it's challenging to have the audit of the consultation document, but it's done us wonders in relation to the LTP phase of it. Thanks to the team and also to audit as well, because this is a relationship, whether we like it or not. And look forward to future processes with enhanced quality assurance. And again, we'll come back to the earlier point, Niall, in terms of how the Risk and Assurance Committee can support this process. So we'll note that within this particular resolution. But yeah, just thanks to the team. It's a huge amount of mahi. And if the committee wouldn't mind acknowledging that in the recommendation as well, to acknowledge the team for all the work that they have done in relation to the process.
Every time I write notes, I write it as long as the report that's coming to me. But one of the things that stands out to me is the comment about the complex cross-team whole organisation effort that was put in. And I can imagine when you're auditing one area or you're looking at the audit for one area and then another area pops up and then another area pops up because it all impacts. And that complexity is that, must drive somebody who's leading the process crazy. But just the acknowledgement of that, and it's easy being independent. I'm not as up to date as everybody else on the committee. So for me, I'm looking for information that might seem quite, like ho-hum to you guys, because you see it and you see it in different documents. You have to report to the council, you have to report to different places. But when I look at the information, I'm looking at how the next time, how best we can do the next time. One of the things that I questioned myself and through all the information I was given was, gosh, haven't we got a structure to follow, or does it change remarkably every time we have to do this? Because I'm thinking about not that I think it should be an easy process, or well, it shouldn't be such a complex process, but once you have a kind of a structure to follow, it becomes easier, and then do that. And so what I would be looking for is what's different, looking for the things that might not sit not well, but not sit completely how, because some of it looked like, we've not done this before. Why are we making it difficult when so difficult? And I don't think that and it's not to reflect that your staff can't work on very complex things, but also what is helpful. It's no use that I can be a mathematician and actually you don't need me. You need somebody that can actually add, and I'm trying to add a really complex process to something that should be a little bit easier, but still highlight some of the areas that we need to concentrate on. Not sure if it made entire sense, but in my mind it does. It shouldn't be so difficult and so time consuming. And sometimes the simplest thing is actually the answer. So.
Thank Don's looking forward to taking that one.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. And I was just reflecting while you were talking that probably if we look back over the last 4 years, this district has seen growth that we've never experienced before. And probably there were a number of other issues around our growth strategy for our townships, as well as the infrastructure to support that, the complexity, if you like, in terms of the regulatory environment, perhaps drove us more to go back to fundamental. I mean, there were some aspects that we could just build on, but there was some fundamental review, I think, too, that challenged us. I mean, if we were a district that was static and didn't have the challenges that we've had to adapt to and think about, you know, you just about photocopy it off and change a few words. But I think, just believe or feel that we were in quite a different environment and we had to react to that, and it did need some fundamental review.
Sorry.
Yep, okay.
I was just saying that, was there a comment in there about extra staff would benefit making the process a lot easier and just, yeah. But I think what I see in this paper is that the processes that have been followed to get to this point have been validated by the qualified opinion from the audit company. So you've done a really good job. So how do you copy that and pick out the good bits like you've done in this particular paper and carry this forward into what might happen in 3 years' time?
Yeah, and my understanding. So the good thing is that we've got good practice here to actually go back and look at those lessons learned from that process, and then make sure that we take account of those as we move forward into future processes, right? Which is
totally.
Yeah, and I think that this report is a really good way to sense check that and provide those future. We must do this type of thing moving forward. So. Congratulations on the team for, despite going through the audit and the consultation document and LTP and doing this as well, and then making sure that it's very clear in terms of the journey that we need to follow for future. Any other comments? No, otherwise the recommendation in front of us is that we receive the report and provide feedback. I'd like the report to read, in terms of that feedback, would be congratulations and thanks to the team in relation to all the work that they've done in relation to the consultation document, the LTP, and also the debrief report. So noting that, and to the earlier point that the Risk and Assurance Chair will work with the team to determine how this committee can support future LTP consultation assurance process. That's what Gary is moving, and Fire Joanne is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Did you get that? I'm just checking in each time because Project's trying to keep up with us. Excellent. No surprises to us. 8.3, which is the final LTP. Back to you in the studio.
Right. So this report is obviously the meaty one in our agenda. So we're here today to present the final long-term plan to the committee. And as the committee will be aware that the council and this committee have worked through a lot of processes over the last 18 months or so. And that's developed the long-term plan document, had it endorsed for audit. The audit commenced in January, late January, and worked through until March, at which point Audit New Zealand issued an audit opinion on the consultation document. Excuse me, we went out for consultation for a month, and that started on the 21st of March, ran through to the 21st of April. During that 1 month submission period, we received 465 submissions on the topics that were up for consultation, and there were 9 key topics that were put out for public consultation. We also did get some feedback on some other issues as well. And in early May, Council had a hearing in this chambers and heard directly from those people that wanted to speak to their submissions. And as we previously heard, Audit New Zealand have undertaken auditing of the final consultation document. I'll ask if Lani just wants to comment in terms of the rating and the balanced budget. But you'll see there that the LTP is broken up into a number of sections, and Council will need to set a resolution around its unbalanced budget tomorrow at the point of adopting this LTP. In terms of the statutory process, so once this long-term plan is adopted, it will of course set a formal and public statement of Council's intentions for the next 10 years. And subject to some statutory limitations, we can't necessarily change the long-term plan unless we go through a formal process to do that. So it's just, being aware of that. I think I'll leave it there. But I would just note, obviously, now that we are into our current financial year, that we are utilising the transitional provisions that were put in place with the water services legislation, which allows the long-term plan to be adopted no later than the 30th of September. So we're just doing it slightly later, excuse me, than what we typically would. Typically, we try and adopt our long-term plan in the year before, just a couple of days before the start of the financial year. Obviously, we're just a little bit into that now, but we're not seeing that will create us any problems by doing it at this point. So, we'll leave it there. I'll just ask if Lani wants to just comment on the balance or unbalanced budget and the rating aspects in particular.
Yeah, and also the capital delivery program, if you could. Thank you.
Sorry, one thing I did want to raise is that we had our a legal review process underway leading up and before we got this report to you. So we had Simpson Grierson review our revenue and financing policy, rates resolution, and the rating calculation part of the funding impact statement. So there wasn't anything dramatic come out of that. I've made a few wording changes to the revenue and financing policy, suggestions that to make the wording sort of align more closely with what was in the legislation. But there was one change that they suggested in our the funding considerations for each activity. So we worked through with Council to work through how we were going to fund all those. And one they pointed out was the communications and events activity. Currently, we hold events like the Business Night Out Awards, and we charge a fee for that. And the policy, in the draft policy, we said it was 100% covered by rates and rates, but they suggested we make it 95 rates and 5% fees and charges. So I have made that, assumed you'd be happy with that change, so I've made that in the final document. Didn't make any change to budgets or anything, because we'd already budgeted for small amount of fees to come in. Otherwise, the other key things, obviously Council's adopted the rate limits that we'd set in the draft LTP. If you look at the graph on page 61 of your agenda, you'll see obviously that in the first year we're at our rate limits that we've set, but in the outer years we've got a little bit of headroom there. Look at that graph.
So I was just trying to find
61.
61 off the 156. Sorry, I was in the LTP.
Yeah, so obviously, particularly the limit that we've set on the 3 water activity rates, starting at 25% in year 1, we're right at 25% in year 1. So, but in the outer years, we've got a bit of headroom there, and that's quite important when we're looking at our balanced budget discussion. In the Info Council report, I've talked to you about in the balanced budget, we're obviously being clear about the fact there's some risks with going out with an unbalanced budget. And I've also noted that LGFA have contacted us about their concerns over that. Just talking about that, the LGFA has a responsibility to watch out for this kind of thing. They're looking out for the interests of all the shareholding councils. So yeah, I'd be upset if they didn't contact us really to point out that they're looking at these things. So their main issue is that they are they'd be looking for an improving, they understand there's affordability concerns. They have concerns with using borrowing to pay for the groceries, as council is. And it's particularly in our case, the borrowing for our desludging projects. And we have said we were going to repay it over a 15-year period. So it's outside of the term of our long-term plan. The LGFA would, I guess, prefer to see that we were looking to improve over the 10 years of the long-term plan to get back into a balanced budget position. And I pointed out earlier that we do have that headroom available within our rates limits that we have set. So there is opportunity in future LTPs to address that at this point. So yeah, I guess the LGFA too has pointed out they didn't have any concerns with our ability to stay within our covenants. We're in a strong financial position to start with. So yeah, I guess I'm just pointing out doing their duty. Yeah. Any questions?
Has anything, just on the capital program delivery, has anything improved or worsened in relation to the forecast of that?
No, our capital delivery stayed the same, and we didn't have any reason to change. Yeah.
Just wanted to hear it. I thought I kind of wanted to hear it too. Thank you. And thank you for mentioning the LGFA, which I'm sure some of the other committee members would have been prepared to ask. Just on that, does that have any impact on any future borrowing for us, or do you think that's the reason for the conversation?
Yeah, no, it's not a concern that he raised at this point. And to be honest, he said they've talked to other councils that are in the same position. No, it's not a concern at this point, but it's just they would prefer to see an improving picture over the 10 years.
I think we all would. I still have heart palpitations each time I hear unbalanced budget. I'm learning to work through that.
We've always had an unbalanced budget in our LGP. This one, just the desludging, I guess, has increased it, and the volume of unfunded depreciation has increased as well, which goes in line with our increasing value of our assets, I guess.
Yeah, I guess my comments were around that unbalanced budget. I mean, it's not a concept that I'm used to, but when reading the paper, it made sense to me. That's why we are going that way. But budget, so happy to support that. That's basic. Just make it a dumb question. Is the LGFA funding agency, are they the ones that hold the trustee as well?
No.
We talk about that later on. That's something to pick up. Somebody explains it.
My question is around the unbalanced budget too. Having probably at least understanding when I went into it, well, no understanding when I went into reading of documents too. Do we have a tolerance when we stop? Like the only way I can explain it, if we're gonna use $10,000 or that kind of difference. And once we get to 9,999, we'll think we have to reassess what we're doing, or do we just use, I'm not sure if this is the right question, or does the unbalanced budget mean that we have a higher tolerance for some of the things that are happening within the program, and then we kind of up the limit, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess we have an opportunity to address this each year when we set our new budget, and what council is happy to live with, I guess. I don't know if I've answered your question.
So I'm just trying to think. I mean, it's a very open and transparent. I mean, one of the frustrations I think of biomass, which the Society of Accounts did to us years ago, was change it from a capital item to an expense item, and I still can't quite see the rationale for that. But that's just me. And I mean, I'd be surprised if others faced with a similar problem wouldn't see the sense. You imagine expensing $5 million over whatever the period is that we're doing the work. I mean, the rate rise would be significant and out of character to our general spend, if you like. We see it as a discrete item, a discrete function. It's not ongoing because plants in the future, biomass would be seen as an annual expense that would just happen rather than allowed to accumulate over years. So it's a one-off event. It's not like it's repeatable. And for that reason, I think we believe it's not unreasonable in our advice to council to suggest that the risk presented by having that amount of money spread out and repaid over a period of 15 years, which you can react to at any time. And that's the point Marnie made about having some headroom. I mean, it's not like we're in a corner and don't have some ability to move and repay quicker if we want to, or if let's assume the costs come in cheaper than 5 million. Let's say they come in at 4 million. Well, we'll be better off. If they come in slightly worse, well, we've got an opportunity there too. So, I don't want to be flippant about it, and it's not. I mean, the law says that we should have an unbalanced budget, a balanced budget. Sorry, but I can't. If it was imprudent and placing this council at risk, I think we'd be very clear about that.
I think if I can just ask, how often do the plants get desludged? Because this is the critical point.
40 years.
Yeah. And it's been in the long-term plan and pushed out because it hasn't been sort of deemed as urgent. But we have to address it at some stage. So this council is addressing it because it has been pushed out in a previous long-term plan. So that's a key point there, is that it doesn't happen every year. So it makes sense to spread the cost across a number of years. So I guess that's the critical point.
Given our financial strength,
yeah,
I think that's the important thing to focus on. We are not at this point
highly indebted.
Yeah, highly indebted, and I mean I know a neighbouring council has debt to income ratios of over 200%. It's similar size than ours. Now they've gone to the LGFA. They've negotiated an understanding with the LGFA, and that bridge is short term, and I think that's a similar type of thing. I mean, they're putting their debt to revenue ratio up way above what, and we're not. And when all our forecasting is saying is our debt to revenue ratio is staying below our reasonable, prudent level. And I'm looking at Renee, hoping for a nod.
And I guess the other side of it is we're not fudging our other numbers and trying to reduce our rate rise to feel better. The reality is there's stuff to do and we have to pay for it.
Could I point out in years 8 to 10, I think it is, we have actively, council have agreed to improve the debt to revenue ratio in the three water space with an increase over and above what was strictly needed. In other words, we're taking what is projected, it's around about 300%, isn't it? We're trying to bring that back down to close to 200%. by increasing those rates in those 3 years.
Any other questions? Got a couple. It's 450 odd pages, and so I'm not saying that we focus on every minute detail, and that's not our role. Our role is to stay at the deal breaker level. So from my perspective, no deal breakers. But even if there were, it feels like it's a little bit short of time to actually highlight them anyway. So I'm hoping in the future that we have a bit more room between when we receive this and when we actually get to final sign off. And what I liked about reading the LTP is I got the genuine sense that the elected members were listening to the feedback that they were provided. And there was clarity of the impact of decisions on the ratepayers. So as an example, Waka Kotahi funding on page 51 of the LTP, it's clear that if the funding decreases from Waka Kotahi, that the ratepayers will end up having to pay more. So things like that, I think, were really valuable. And then I focused on a couple of, I focused on water reform actually, because I'm quite keen to see where we were with that. So that was on page 56. And I just wanted to challenge our thinking in relation to the risk of that being at medium. So we're saying I'll just wait for people to get to that. It's page 56 and 433, if that's the document that you've got. That's also section 2, page 16. And I'm not sure who I'm directing this question to, but I'm just asking the question. I agree that the level of uncertainty is high. I'm just challenging whether the risk to us is medium.
So that's the risk of the other scenarios?
Yeah. So I'm okay. Yeah, it was one of the ones that stuck out to me, whether we were comfortable that it was medium. That's not material, I get it, but I'm just also proving that the committee members do read papers.
Line. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
So I guess because we're in a bit of a vacuum around what's happening with the three waters, this is where we've landed. That's probably the best guess, the best assumption with the information we have at the time is this is where we've landed. And I think we have to accept that.
I'm only saying that because if it were me looking at it, I would have gone higher than the medium because of what I think the impacts could be for us.
Yeah.
So I'm not unhappy about it. I'm just I'm being a person that's kind of testing that thinking.
And it could be more medium high than medium low.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you look at the range.
Yeah. So not a deal breaker, but it's just those types of things that, and it helps to have a lens of someone. And I get it, you guys will see this every single day. Well, hopefully not every day, hope you get a break. The other thing that I might raise is, were we happy overall with the number of submissions that we received from our ratepayers?
I think we were a little bit surprised at not getting as many, but because of the publicity led by Local Government New Zealand, mayors talking, there was that regional focus, there was a lot more publicity that high rate rises aren't unique to just one council, it's a nationwide issue. But I think now we have perhaps there's more understanding. But in saying that, when the first rates notice hits people's mailboxes is when the reality will hit. But that's no different than in the past. Nothing's different in that respect. So, yeah, we were a little surprised at that there weren't as many submissions. But a lot of councils, most councils were the same. From what I've talked to other mayors, a number of councils didn't have many submissions at all.
It was relatively low for most.
It's across the board. So we're not unique. I think that's the biggest thing, is that this is a broad spectrum. We're not looking different from the the trend.
I think relatively similar to past years. But when you break it down per topic, the numbers become a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So if I think about, the Te Araha Spa project that was consulted on, received 60 submissions in total. So the numbers become smaller as you break them down, which, it is more challenging to understand the broader view. But I think that's just a sector challenge that we all face as councils and engaging the community and, receiving submissions. Because, there's so many different avenues through social media and things that people will give their opinion. But as we formally receive them as submissions, we do our best to try to encourage that. And it's just an ongoing journey to try and drive that.
No, just on that, are there any movements in the sector to take on board online feedback?
I think also that is an individual council. I don't know if there's a sector position on that, but I understand that different councils take different approaches to harvesting social media content as submissions. Our approach is that we haven't done that. We have encouraged people when I've given online comments to, here's the link to give that feedback more formally. But we do review that.
Yeah, my understanding is one of the reasons why some councils can't or don't or won't is because it's hard to determine whether that person is actually within the boundary. And so you don't want a whole heap of comments that are coming from outside to shape that particular district.
Yeah, that's I'm not sure that that's necessarily the issue. We do get submissions from people residing outside the district. And it's not a requirement either to be a ratepayer or reside within the district. But there is challenges in terms of communicating back to people and making sure that we've got, that formalised, and are we getting the information from them that, we need to formally put them in our system and things like that. So I think it's a practical issue of, where we just have someone's name, is that, just how we do that.
Thanks. No, I just want to check a number. When you opened on this particular paper, you said that there were 465 submissions. In the LTP, it talks about 572. Is that because we're splitting individuals and businesses?
Could be a policy.
So I'm just looking at what I said.
Would that be the difference between the policies that we put out as well?
Yeah, so it depends how we cut it. We, alongside the long-term plan, there was a number of policies that we covered. So it's just whether we're counting the topics that were in the CD or whether we're counting the other things as well.
Yeah, it's catchy because it says end policies. So just making sure that we're adding up. Sorry if I joking.
It's fine. I find myself at submission time defending the council about the rate rises. And I'm thinking, you do something with the council, and I can try and explain it. And then when you go underneath that, of course, they think, well, that's rubbish, stuff like that. One of the other things that I find though is that I'm telling people, I think you should write a letter. A letter is a submission, to this, but they feel they don't understand enough, and so they're either put off by it or they think that it doesn't hold the weight because it's their opinion. I said, but if you're playing race or you're participating in this part of it, in this area, then you have every right to say, I think this is hard on us or whatever. It doesn't need to be something that's complex. But the other part of that is that I've been talking to some other people in another community, not them, but people that came, and they said, I don't understand enough. It just looks too hard. I won't say anything. I said, but here's the impact, for this and for that. And not only talking about Māori development, but also talking about just townspeople who think I don't know how to have a say without thinking that who is this stupid person that's asking this question. And so I wonder, through Madam Chair, that do we have a responsibility? Well, I'm sure we do have a responsibility in ensuring that the submissions coming through aren't from, people that are well equipped to make submissions, how do we support it, or do I just keep encouraging people, write a letter, just write it down and send it, and they'll respond to you.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing in this particular role, is encouraging people to use their voice.
And I think council is complex. It's not until you get inside it that you really appreciate the complexity of what we actually do. From water to rubbish to dogs and libraries, and and of course it all comes at a cost to the ratepayer, and it's trying to get people to understand it. I think we did our best to reach out. We had Brad Olsen in the district in Matamata one evening. I think we had about 60 people there. That was quite helpful for people to appreciate what our rates pay for and why they're going up, because it represents 2% of the tax take. Basically, is the number for New Zealand. But there's always ways to keep building that relationship with the community, to try and get them to engage with us and to build that understanding. It's always an ongoing journey. I don't know how we can, the thing is, if we can spend more time, then that comes at more cost, trying to, to reach every person. And there comes a point where how far do you go to try and get people's feedback? And that's where I sort of encourage councillors to speak to people in the community. And obviously I go and speak to different groups. And yeah, that's the only way really, is to do it. But their letters definitely are. They can send letters in and they can be included as submissions. They are asked if they'd like that to be a submission, because we did have some, there were letters that I've received that were included in submissions. So they can write letters during that submission period. So hopefully that helps answer the question. But yeah, there's different ways of reaching out for consultation too. And I think we were quite tight this year on our timing as well. If you had a longer period of time, you perhaps could spend more time in the community, but again, it comes at a cost. And it's that tension over cost and convenience to reach people and how to get people to engage. That's always going to be a challenge.
Just to add to that briefly, this time around we put more investment into a web platform that we're encouraging people to engage in the process that way, rather than distributing printed material. So just to try and manage that cost, and hopefully engage with people easier as well, and in a process that they feel more comfortable with.
And if I join to add to that, one of the other things that we could do is, if we hear feedback on how it might be easier for people to engage, then we bring that feedback here for the next round.
Yeah, I think that there was one, I think the water issue I brought up in our own marae committee, but you know how they say this is not a democracy, it is a dictatorship inside there. But the way in which you relate, like I'm in one of the other marae committees I went to, Whakapapa as well, just talking about the impact that something has on something else. And then this kind of wonderment about, like never putting it together. But so I think that there's real room for on that level. Like I can go into the committee, I go into the committee and say, what are you fellas doing around this? This is what's going to happen, So that's where I go to. This is not a democracy at the marae committee, and bring our details back. You can have that kind of discussion, but when they're looking at papakainga, when they're looking at water, and not just, whether it's on council supply or you have your own pools, or it's coming from the, like we're doing all our own water out in rural settings. They don't necessarily see the whole picture. But there are other communities like that too, because they're worried about their area. And, so yeah, I think there's room.
Thank you. water meters. Is our community for it? Will our infrastructure handle it?
So it was quite an interesting topic that we did put in, because I was definitely a proponent to give the signal that we would be putting in water meters. I think the reality now is a lot of people, we're one of the few councils that doesn't have water meters. I think people now realise that water meters are necessary. They're not the debate that they used to be, is should we have them or shouldn't we? I think a conversation around our allocation, our consent for water will also provide the need for allocation, because there's a lack of, while we have no water meters, there is no incentive to conserve. That is the clearest signal that I can put to that. And if we're treating water needlessly because it's being wasted, that's a cost. So I think the debate around water meters is big. Big my view now. I think people get it.
Yeah, we're doing it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there were a few financial things, but it was more in relation to the trend of our finance costs. You know, going from 2 mil to I think 8 million in one space, and our borrowing from 52 mil to 165 mil. So yeah, there's a lot to be done, but acknowledge all of the work that was done in relation to that space. To my understanding, we didn't have any deal breakers, so the recommendation in front of us is to receive the LTP. Just double checking. So we receive it and we provide any feedback, which I don't think that there was. Just Lalia, how was the outcome of the whoever's LGFA going to come back into this space? Will it be at the next hui?
They've said they would contact council after the LTP is adopted to provide the time to come in.
I won't put a specific recommendation, but just thanks in advance for the heads up. Okay. So the recommendation is that we received the report, and I won't mention the feedback. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Aye.
I'm not sure that you can.
Can I do that?
We appreciate you anyway.
Thank you.
By Joanna's moving and Matua Gary is sending it. Please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Let's push through, Keen, and do 8.4, which is the audit plan. My apologies for being slightly delayed, but I think it's a robust order that needs to happen. So we have the audit plan for the annual report, which is probably another reason to relay through that point where you're in the room. Excellent. Lani, is this? Yeah. Yeah.
You've unfortunately got me again.
Okay.
So yes, the audit plan for the upcoming annual report. I've just got my colleague Olivia here as well. But yeah, attached to the SIB report, there's the audit plan and the letter of engagement that supports that. And we just need any feedback from the committee around that. Yeah.
Thanks. Any feedback, team?
There's always a challenge around materiality, but that's okay. You know, that's what it is.
This is where I can ask what the trust is.
Between the trustee and the LGFA, isn't it?
Did you want to repeat your question?
Just wanted to know, what is the trust? Who are they?
Okay, so the debenture trust deed is it's a security document that we hold. So that our lenders look to. Sorry, when we went with the LGFA initially, they having this debenture trust deed in place gives them more security. So it gives us in turn lower borrowing rates. So we have responsibilities within this trustee to report at certain periods with financial covenants we have to meet, and part of it is an annual review by Audit New Zealand to ensure we're meeting all the requirements.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, sorry, I think at the end of the day, it's pretty straightforward, obviously, around the Local Government Act as to what's required. And yeah, well, when you think about significance and engagement and things like that, it's definitely a valuable part of our process.
I'm going to ask a question in relation to local waters done well. So we're on page 77 of the papers. I think it's page 3 of the attachment. So in the paper, it talks about waiting for the bills to be released, and there have been 2 that have. So I'm just seeking any comments from Audit New Zealand whether there's any impact, so any known impact on the audit based on the release of those bills.
Madam Chair, not at the moment. For us, it's a watching brief as well. So let's watch the space to see what's going to transpire for audit.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess in terms of the follow-up about climate, are we expecting anything to be significantly different in the audit plan based on the release or the publication by the Office of the Auditor General?
Nothing at this point for this year's audit, no.
Excellent. Thank you. And within, so it's page 82 for people. I've got a question in relation to the materiality. So we talk about compliance with our resource consents, and I'm just asking the question, where there's a 5% materiality, does that mean as if we've got only one abatement notice and then another one pops up and we didn't report it, we potentially get qualified unless we make the change? Just checking. That seems big in the scheme of things.
So with our performance measures on those ones for compliance, is that we have none.
Yeah.
But zero tight is the target.
Seems low. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's something, it could be a deal breaker, but yeah, okay. But obviously we have the opportunity to make that change so we don't end up in that particular situation, but we just go through the motions. Anyway, any other questions? Otherwise, we have a recommendation in front of us, which is to receive the report, receive the draft annual plan, receive the letter of engagement, and provide any feedback. And so my understanding is there haven't been, except for the changes in focus, there haven't been any significant changes based on 4 yet. Okay, fine. Could I please have a mover and a seconder?
I'll move.
By Joanne is moving. Matamata-Piako is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Congratulations, team. A well-earned morning tea break. And again, thank you to all the team in relation to delivering the papers that we have of approach, we take the report generally as read, but if you'd like to make a few introductory comments, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Sorry. You just take this one. And there's the attachments and there's the item.
Your light on. Yep.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
So as you will be aware, we had our balance assessment on the 11th of March this year. Our outcomes on that balance assessment was 1 serious non-compliances and 4 general non-compliances. The 1 serious non-compliance was to do with compliance schedules, and it was only a serious non-compliance because it was a repeat of another regulation. It was not a repeat in a general non-compliance. We can actually break down those that 1 series and the 4 general non-compliance, what we've got into pretty much 2 different categories. One was compliance schedules and the other part was minor regulations. We've had our action plan approved by the 20th of April, I think. And I think it was a week before we had to get it approved. We got our final clearance by arms on the 1st of March. Oh, sorry, 1st of May. Where everything was cleared. I received the certificate yesterday. It shows that we are an accredited body. Our next routine assessment is on the in 2025, March 2025. Our risk at this stage, and you will see that in the report as well, is as medium. We have asked IONS yesterday, as I got a note back from Lee yesterday. We've asked IONS yesterday what we need to do to get back to low risk. And we have not heard anything from it yet.
Thank you. That's a great summary. So do we have any questions from the committee members?
Obviously, we've been on annual IONS audits, and to get us to low, would that push us out to 2 yearly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Each we've asked the question what we need to do. We're looking at different scenarios, as I said to Don and to Danny earlier, that the compliance schedules is a nightmare, if I can put it in a nice way, because that's something that comes up every time, unfortunately. I've got a contact in IONS, it's a technical assessor, and I'm actually going to approach her and ask her if there's somebody that she can give me a contact of, that's got those things sorted, that he can actually approach him and ask him if we can do a one-on-one or something like that. So we can get people ourselves sorted so that when that comes up, if the next assessment comes up, it will not be an issue.
Makes sense.
We just had enough of it in the sense of getting serious non-compliances for it. I mean, we were actually surprised when we looked at our IONS report again. We did exactly what we've done the year before, and then this came along, and then this happened. So, yeah, we're trying everything in our way, in our situations to change it, to get it back to low, and also to get back to our 2 yearly routine assessments. And to be quite honest as well, I understand that Thames Coromandel ECDC had an assessment where they could actually say what they want IONS to have a look at. I mean, that would be ideal if we can take sort of IONS can look at and what not.
But then, what kind of audit is it where you're getting, where they look at what you're directing them to look at? I think that raises, to me, that seems really bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, on that, I mean, what was quite interesting. Myself and Sarah, our quality officer, spoke about it, because when we had our assessment, IONS only had access to our system that we switched on when they were with Thames. They had to give IONS access to the actual assessment. So, yes.
It's consistency.
Yeah.
Issues.
So, yeah, as I said, control everything to get out of this whole mess.
Takes a significant amount of time being audited annually too.
Yeah,
This is the other thing, isn't it? Is if it can be by Emily and make it.
What I heard of that is our goal is to reach low risk and be on the 2-year cycle.
Yep.
We have asked how to do that and we're waiting on a response. We are working with people, trying to find people to work with so we can understand, especially in the compliance schedule space, what we need to do to achieve that. Can I also get clarification? You mentioned before that things have been closed, so I just wanted to hear, is that all the recommendations that have been raised were closed or just the serious non-compliance?
So when we've got your assessment, you will have your general non-compliance, your serious non-compliance, you've got recommendation and advice notes. The only ones that you need to close off is your general non-compliance and your serious non-compliance.
Yeah.
Saying that, we put everything, including the advice notes, we put that on our continuous improvement log, and we work through that. Yes, we don't need to get it signed off at the time, but a lot of those recommendations actually attached to our general non-compliance. So
So whatever we can do to close, we have.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Thank you. Any other questions from the committee members?
I think from that perspective, there's a plan.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good idea. I think it's a no-brainer to try and I think what you've laid out to do is a good.
And obviously we want to move to low, but there is a very low option as well, and which is further than 2 years. So we want to try and get to low as our first next step, and obviously our aspiration is to get to that very low, which will push our audits out even further and reduce the costs and time that the team are spending on that.
Thank you. The recommendation is that the information be received. Can I please have a mover, which is much for Gary, and a seconder? By Joanne, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Cheers. Then we are moving to 8.6 on our agenda, which is the NPDC project progress report for April 2024. Hello, Rachel. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Right, we've managed to
Swing it to away.
we managed to get a project report gathered together. This one is pretty much a mashup of everybody's project reporting, trying to get an overall picture of what's going on just till the end of this financial year, and then next year we've got one that's in progress at the moment that we're putting together, which will probably show a lot more detail and a bit more concise, I guess, for next year.
More detail on this.
Yeah, but you'll have some finances and things like that next year, whereas this one is it's a mashup, and it goes down to the nth degree of some things are just activities, they're not really projects, so it's kind of everything is in here at the moment. So we're trying to refine that a bit more for next year. But hopefully it gives you a bit of an overview of what's going on.
Yep, sweet.
This is the first to see something like this, saying.
Yeah, so it's a bit of trial and error at the moment of what do we want to see, what's enough detail, what's too much detail. So yeah, trial and error, feedback, welcome.
Feedback team.
Obviously, the light system is a good. You always look for red.
And we've tried to design it that it's not like green is great, orange and red is bad. It's like we're just trying to say to everybody, if it's orange or red, we need help, or we need a decision, or we need something to be able to progress to meet our objective.
Yeah, well, it's like throwing up risks. Yeah, what's happening that it's stalling or it's and that's probably the really good thing. I think we'll look forward to how it evolves to in a series of where it's broken down maybe into different sectors.
Yeah. So we're gathering it together in sort of like 4 services, so sort of business support services, infrastructure and assets, things like that. So it will be a grouped,
which I think will be, because like you said, it's quite.
It is, it's an overwhelming.
It is
lot of stuff,
and that's where you just immediately go to red instead of looking and seeing, because there's a lot of green there.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing we need to reflect on is stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and so that's why there's been 2 data bars there at the moment, because if you looked at our building program and we go, oh, 40%, you know, that looks not great. But take into consideration all the deferred stuff and terminated stuff, because we've had all of the seismic assessments and everything like that, that has stalled our progress on that. So where we thought we would have been, we're not. But if we take out all that terminated and deferred stuff because of those reasons, we're actually 75%. So we're not that bad.
I just thought the graphs at page 139 probably says enough
That's great.
for my mind anyway. I think they tell a really nice picture, just moves it.
yeah, I guess the key to that is it's good to have the pie, but then if you want to dig deeper, you can drill down. And I think that's the key thing for councillors and when stuff's being reported, isn't it? You get the high level, this is what it looks like, but if you want to dig deeper, this is
it's kind of finding that balance of what we need to see or what would you like to see versus it's just
But for this committee, it's quite important that we understand.
Yes, you kind of want the detail.
Coming back to the colours, I think it's helpful to stick with the well-known methodology, the RAC status, so the red and the green. I think we stay in that space, it's helpful. I guess from our perspective, is there any best way that the Risk and Assurance Committee can add value in terms of this? Have you received feedback from ELT? Is that what shaped how it looks like?
Yeah, kind of. This one has been a bit of a trial and error. The one for future, yeah, but they have given me some feedback and things like that on it. So
I think it's a great start. I think to your point, it needs to be honed over time to make sure that the different spaces are receiving the different information that they need to base their decisions on. I'm quite keen to understand whether it's all encompassing. So how do we make sure that it captures everything that's supposed to go on here? And how do we make sure that we don't dedicate too much resource if there's a lot of more data that's required to be collected from different spaces to make it happen, i.e. so that it's automated? Because we talk a lot about value add, and if you're spending weeks to try and develop a report that might only have, or in terms of cost savings, 1 week of cost savings of time, we just need to find that balance.
Yeah, so with this one, it's kind of a mashup of everything. Next year's it's all the projects that are in the LTP, plus some of our operational projects that are going on. So that isn't necessarily asset related. So it's a lot more refined for next year's reporting.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating, isn't it, when you look at the little balls, the coloured balls, and obviously budget, time, scope and resource, because then you can understand where the challenges are. Like it is actually a really good snapshot of where the issue is. So I quite like it in that respect, because it does tell you immediately, or if it's everything, I guess there's one red dot for one thing, but you know, like it does highlight, it does prove a really good spot where you can drill into, that we do get our eyes over where the risks sits if it's not great.
Yeah, so that's something that's also added in for next year's, is unless risk stuff to see whether it's going to stay our risk for that project overall is staying the same, increasing or decreasing, depending on what controls that we use for it.
Look, I quite like that, the use of those 4 columns with the, yeah, that's really easy to read, which is the key, isn't it? If you're going to provide, like you said, take on point that it takes you ages to put it together, what's the value? But then when you can see at a glance where the risk is greatest, let's make it difference. Because I guess for us going forward, because the fascinating thing about this is when we do, this information to me is quite useful, because when you're planning ahead, and like with our long-term plan and the work that we're putting in the long-term plan as to the achievability of it, I was saying before at the morning tea break about reflecting on what's happened in the previous year is actually quite important, because if there's a big overhang from the previous year, that has an impact on the following year, because you've got to finish. So I quite like this, But yes, to balance it with the resource spent and putting it together with valuable personal information.
Indeed, we have a question from Councillor Kevin, and then Fire Joanne, and then Madam Gary.
Hi. I just wondered would it be possible to get a copy of the spreadsheet for this so I can run some filters on it and like identify maybe put everything in place about where the roadblocks are and what have you.
For the end of this year's one, I probably wouldn't advise that. For next year, yeah.
I'm going to answer that one. Stay in the clouds, Councillor Kevin.
I can make one, but it's just easier to be given one. But I'm going to Adrian's point about it would be easier, useful for LTPs and what have you. If we were going to be running a flexible LTP or a live one, we could see what decisions we make were affecting things in this project list, and what would be in danger of falling off if we do make a decision that requires a change.
Like I always go to the read when I see read, but what I would like probably is recommendations from some of the things are quite clear about why it was terminated, funding and it was terminated. But is there anything that may be at risk if something is deferred that will affect other things in the future? Or if it's terminated for a reason other than funding is cut, and the committee would like the explanation for that because it may have an impact on something else.
I answered the question.
I guess the fascinating thing about if something's terminated, it'd have to be a really explicit reason why it would be, because if it's in our long-term plan and we terminate, then that triggers the significance of engagement policy. So I would expect management would be all over that before it hits us, because that's an operational, it come out of an operational activity for something to be terminated rather than a strategic, or they'd be bringing it to council to say, hey, yeah. But again, it's the significance and engagement policies when this comes in the termination.
And further to that, I'm quite keen on the trajectory of where something has got a highlighted status of, or overall status of action required. So what is the action required? Is it to take it to ELT? Is it to take it to risk insurance? Is it to take it to council? So if we're thinking about utilising this, how is that? So if I think about the risk management policy, I think the most significant risks probably within that policy to come to this table. And so if we can have a think about what that looks like, if you haven't already. And you're nodding, so I'm guessing you have.
Yeah, working with Leslie.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
No, it's been a bit of a journey because so many units were reporting in different formats and inconsistently. So there was a lot of haze as to what was happening. And we're slowly getting there. And I think people are now pretty committed to utilising this system. The trick is for people to recognise when a project's a project and when to put it into a project format. Because in behind this, of course, is our project process and recording and planning and delivery, risk identification, all that sort of thing. So this is supported by a whole policy frame, and it's all about another strand or another pillar in improving our project delivery standard and timeliness, rather than Everybody's sort of having their own little system. So well done to Rachel for what has been probably a pretty frustrating process at times, I imagine, Rachel.
Still smiling, she's smiling.
So this is as I say, this is just the outcome of quite a bit of work.
No, good work.
And now Rachel's aligned to our project delivery team under Susan, so that I think is going to be a helpful relationship as well.
Great work, team. Looks like it's shaping up to be a great system, and I'm hoping that we use it to the extent that we intended to. Similar to Leslie's risk journey,
Yeah.
it is a journey, and it's good to see that it looks like we're shaping it to that we can all jump on that same walker. So kia ora. The recommendation in front of us is to receive, hopefully. Yep. So I'm happy to move. Can we please have a seconder? So Gary, a seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Good work. Well done. Yeah, exactly. We are now on 8.7 of our agenda, which is the Lagoima request summary for 22-23 and 23-24. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much. If you're happy, I will take this report as read, and I know you have some questions already, so if you want to fire those away.
So from my perspective, thank you for the report. How are we working with our team to support where we can see the instances of human error that are noted on there?
Yeah.
And then also trying to have an understanding of if we miss a target. So what does that mean for us? What's the impact for us?
Yeah.
And then another question that I have is in relation to the charging that we have. So how much did we actually collect and how much did we forfeit as well?
Cool. In relation to the human error, when I wrote this report and pulled everything from our system, I knew it was a concern to me as well. On the top of my head, I can remember 2 to 3 instances where I received the request after it had already been 20 days because the staff member had worked on it in the background, tried and just never quite got the answer there, or to the person I took over under Lagoima and we were already past. And then there were some where I take the full blame. It was getting information in and then me getting it out. We ended up at the 21 working days. There was only a couple where we were significantly over. Most of them were at 21, 22 working days. And I take full responsibility for that. When it comes, and we do have a couple of things that we're planning on to help with those for this upcoming financial year, which is I will be going through the teams to identify to them why this is important, what the process is, when to get me involved, and their timeframes, and to remind them, because there are a lot of staff since I started doing this that are new and that has come to my attention do not know the process. So I'll be going and talking to different teams about all of that, particularly the ones that have the most requests. In regards to the next one was about
what's the consequence if we miss the target?
So what it would lead us to is the requester who's made a request for information would have the right to go to the ombudsman and lay a complaint that we did not. They would investigate, and then they would issue council with a directive, which would likely be an apology, or depending on the severity, to provide an explanation. And yeah, we can get comments from them. In regards to the charging, which was your next one, it is quite a convoluted process. So what happens is we give requesters under the Act an hour free for us to provide them with information. That's all well and good. And then what happens is if it goes over the hour, we can charge, I think it is roughly $36 or $34 per half hour. What we tend to do is there are quite a few instances where we will send an acknowledgement to the requester and state your request is too expensive, it is too much work. We estimate it will take 8 hours of staff time to collate all of this because of our systems or whatever it may be. This is the charge. You're welcome to either pay this charge or revise your request to bring it more in line with your hour free. What most people do is they revise it or they revoke the request. In my 5 years of doing this, I have only had one person pay a fee. Other than that, everyone else has either revoked it or reduced the size of their request to be more manageable for our staff. There are a few instances, a handful, where the request is large, but it covers multiple departments. And so they the time is divvied up between each of them. One, for instance, is Taxpayers Union. They have one request that comes in every year. We know it's coming in and it covers everything. The amount of staff pay, financing, the whole broad. And I, off my own bat, have decided that that is more important to get that information out there because it happens every year. Us not replying or say we're going to charge is, to me, more of not a good look. So each department does their bit and we send that information out. But those are quite few and far between, that kind of scenario.
I just question, you mentioned 21, 22 days. Have there been any go beyond?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so those would be the instances where I got it from a staff member
quite late,
at 20 days. Or and I think one of them was 34, one was 36.
And how was the I guess the question is with the people that are making these requests.
Yeah.
You've obviously communicated with them at 20 days or whatever, or you do reach out and say, look, we're just been hold up, whatever. You communicate with them so they know that you're working on it. It's not that you're not working on it. Because I think this is the thing around it, isn't it? It's the longer you take, the conspiracy theorists will say, oh, they don't want to do it. And that's, that's human nature. It's absolute human nature. So you communicate, so look, it's taking us longer than we expected, and we will get it to you as soon as possible. So how long? So you've got some 34 days. So I guess that's where processes with staff handling them and you not getting them until too late, basically, is the first need to.
That is the only one where they've gone significantly. Everything I'm hand on heart would say 21, 22 days. And some of them is because on the 20th day, something happened with me and I was like, 21 days, I sent it out that morning. And I'm like,
yeah. And the reality is that you don't just handle these, you're doing other work. I think this is the key thing with our council, is we are a small council where the length and breadth of the roles, some things are of a greater priority. And while it is important to meet targets like this, there is stuff that has to be done that has a greater impact to the organisation if somebody else is waiting on you to do something else. So yeah, it's really hard weighing up, eh?
Sometimes that does remind me, thank you, is that in our restructure as of 1 January next year, we do have a admin coming on board for under me, and this will be one of them.
Yeah, because it is around the capacity of the role and the ability to meet those targets, and there's a cost there to do that. But yeah, thank you, Ellie.
Any other questions? Which is why I was asking around the consequence, because we need to find that balance, right?
Yes.
The recommendation in front of us is that the information be received. Can I please have a mover and seconder? Joanne is moving. Melissa Carey is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Okay. Thank you for your very free and frank discussion on what's happening in that space, and also educating us a little bit further. Well, well done. So we are now on item 8.8, which is the staff climate survey results.
Excellent. Well, we'll take it as read, but we thought what we'd do is highlight a couple of key points that we thought are important. Obviously, we had low participation rate this year, 48.3%. So that is fairly low compared to what we've ever had in the past. Could be a couple of reasons for that. Apathy, people are really happy, they don't have anything to share. But also we felt that we probably didn't encourage participation as much as we'd like to have done so because we were fairly busy at the time. So we do acknowledge that the participation rate was low and that obviously affects the results that we see. One of the things we are looking to do is review the survey in the future. So we've had some feedback from our staff that the survey is really long. There's a lot of questions in there. Some of them do find it a little bit difficult to complete. So what we want to do is actually review and determine, is it providing value to us? Is it actually giving us the information that we need? So we've got that on our task list this year. I guess the great thing was that there was no surprises. It was great to see 94.5% see MPDC is a great place to work, and that was up 1%, so that's always encouraging for us, and 93.2% enjoyed working for MPDC. There's a slight drop there, but still those are really high figures, so that's always good for us. The issues that were coming through, so technology, reputation with ratepayers, and obviously we've had a really difficult year with staff, or for staff, particularly with the curbside and rubbish change. We know that our staff had to deal with a lot of issues in that space. So of course, when they are rating what they think our reputation is like with the ratepayer, of course, they may be clouded by some of those issues. And also societal changes, what we're seeing on Facebook, the way in which people will approach us and interact and aren't afraid to say certain things. So that can, influence the way in which they might see that we're perceived. It was really great to see some positive results, particularly around understanding the future plans and direction of MPDC. That went up by 8%, and also understanding where MPDC is going and how it's going to get there. That went up 3%. So I think we could attribute that to our org review, and that people can see where we're heading, that we're starting to communicate that we're reflecting on the future. It was disappointing for us to see that staff felt that the ability to report harassment without repercussions went down 11%, so that's quite concerning for us. And we also note that the question about bullying and harassment not being tolerated dropped by 7%. So that was certainly concerning for us, like I said. Obviously, we're bearing in mind that there's a low participation rate, so it all depends on who's actually answering these questions. But one of the things that we have done in that space already, John referred to it earlier, that we're embedding the org review in the structure. So we recently had a team leaders and managers day where we brought all of our people leaders together. There were 61 of them, and we focused on a whole lot of different things that we do in terms of our transactional processes, what we refer to as our guardrails to keep people on track. But we also had a morning session on nudge conversations. So this is about getting in early, having those conversations with our staff, and also a really key concept that we talked about was the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So that's about the behaviour that we tolerate within the organisation, what we do and we don't, in our role as leaders. So that was a really good day, and we're going to continue to embed that. And we've also got our e-team leaders, coming together next week on the 11th and the 12th, and all our 13 managers joining on the second half of that day. So again, looking to the future, identifying our strategic priorities we were going to be hitting. Also, as part of the presentation you were seeing, we've identified our plans for 24-25, what changes we wanted to put in place. There's a big emphasis there on technology. Our smarter, easier, better governance group is up and running, doing some great work there. Personally, for me, I would love to use technology to do things better. So to get rid of some of the stuff that's just, mundane, uses up my time. For example, using technology to do minutes for me rather than spending time on that, so I can actually do stuff that adds way more value. So there's lots of opportunities there for us. We've got a few staff that are trialing Microsoft 365. And that's probably about the key points that I've got there. Unless there's anything Kate would like to add.
No, I think you've done a really good summary.
I think if I go back to the previous item with the collating of all the information about projects, I think this is where the information technology is, to just bring everything so that it's not all clunky and disjointed, that they're all using different things. I think to bring things together is all part of that refinement. And I guess the org review was probably better now than later, because I think that also adds to the churn of how people feel about the organisation, because I think we were sweating a few people, and of course that flows, it can't help but flow down the layers. So very interesting. Quite hard to I look at the one about the increased disagreement, I'm thinking, do I understand what this is about the increased level of disagreement? I'm thinking, scratching my head, because it talked about based on the total amount of disagreement and that like we have the technology to effectively support our processes in 2023 was 38%, in 2024 was 44.5%. And yet it talks about it's in red. So
what that means is more people disagree with that statement. So
yes,
if you asked a staff member, do you have the technology
yes,
to do your role? Now we've got 44.5% of our
yes,
staff they know.
and that's where this is all in train now.
Yes.
To yeah, and that was the thing. I was trying to read it, and it's like yeah. So, but that's where that's really important because the technology is a key to hopefully making things more streamlined. Of course, the important thing is to get the right information in there, otherwise it's garbage in, garbage out. But yeah, no, very interesting.
Just on the comment that you made, Kelly, about changing because of the feedback that we received, changing the questions or reducing the time to people expense. So how are we going to make sure that we can still continue to track the trends across time? And I'm guessing that's one of the things that will be considered as part of that process.
Absolutely. And it's actually about what is the feedback that we want to receive from our staff? What's important? What do we actually want to hear? Do we truly understand how our staff feel out there? And is this survey delivering it for us? What the great thing about the survey is we're able to benchmark with other councils. So if we were to move to something different, obviously we'd lose that. So I guess one of the things that we can hear from you as well is what is your take on a survey like this? We would probably come back to you and talk to you about that in the future, particularly using an external provider rather than doing a survey internally, which is what we've done in the past before we moved to Ask Your Team. So yeah, we'll begin to chat about that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. What I would like to say is I think that your summary was a great summary to give us a picture of what you did, what the highlights were and disappointments as well, and but what you're doing about it. So I appreciate that. Unless there are any further comments.
I think there's one somewhere about ideas and how you know how you can staff can provide ideas. Like I think that like there'll always be a gem amongst a few things, you know, and I think that's if they feel listened to, I think is quite important. So there was a question here, wasn't there? That
yeah, it's MPDC supports people who come forward with new ideas. So it was in the it was it's page 35 or 54.
Yeah, right. I knew it was there somewhere, and I guess that's the thing around staff engagement in that is that if they see an opportunity like we, you know, like, and of course we all try to do things best we can, but I guess that's quite a good one if you want them to be engaged in their job, isn't it? As if they think there could be a better way of doing it, being collaborative in that respect.
Similar to the consultation document of people giving their voice in that space, and same here. So take on board your comment at the top of your kōrero that there wasn't as much I guess you know, encouraging people to do the survey, which may have resulted in the lower participation rates.
So how do you capture that? Because what, you know, is it that they're happy and can't be bothered, or are we too busy, or you know, because apathy is always there's always a risk of apathy, isn't there? But you don't expect everybody to engage. But I guess it'd be good to get an understanding of those that didn't. Well, what is it that what were you too busy, didn't have an opinion, or what was the view?
Okay.
I think the part of the context at that time as well was that we had been doing a lot of consultation around the organisational review. So we'd had people come in and have their say around that. And so perhaps there were some people who felt they've already had their say, they said their piece, so they didn't use the survey. So I'm really interested to see where we land next year with this. But I certainly think if we're going to reuse it, we need to really have a big push on people completing it. And what we will look to do as well is probably have, if there's an area that we want to drill into, have a much shorter form of getting feedback from people on a particular issue rather than just relying on the survey.
Can I just share one more thing? So we're also able to run team reports, and we do, as long as there's 5 or more people that have responded within that team to make sure that it's anonymous. So we send out the results to their managers. They're able to see how many people actually participated within their team and also see if there are any issues that have been highlighted. So that's really valuable for our managers. But what that does allow us to see is where are people not engaging with us. So we can follow that up.
Yeah.
And in the past, we could probably not necessarily incentivise, but we've made it a bit of a competition, which team has actually completed the survey and who hasn't. But there are opportunities for us to do that as well, even if it's just encouraging them to run a chocolate fish or something like that if you complete it. But we didn't do that this year.
Just saying chocolate fish.
Yeah, well, Cadbury's.
Countdown at the moment. Tried this morning.
And they won't make McCaveries.
Exactly. So are there any particular teams that always engage or always don't engage? Okay.
Someone more active.
And some of that has to do with technology as well. You know, some of our field staff, it's a little bit more difficult to take part.
I guess that's the thing, is acknowledging the difference. Yeah, because the sector is broad. Yeah, it's a snapshot, isn't it? It's what you make of the information at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I don't mean to make, but our cultural differences have grown. You know, there's different cultures in the organisation now. We perhaps look at things in a different way.
Yeah, it's all changed, isn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah, move for that.
Excellent. We've got the Adrian moving. I'm not sure Gary is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, Lomana carried. Thank you. Yeah, just again, it's great to see that we've got a plan for what that looks like and improving it in the future. And happy for not as an action, but coming back to the Risk and Assurance Committee prior to the next one if you want any feedback. You're on my homework. Guessing you guys are staying for 8.9, which is the safety and wellness reports.
So I'm just in the process of writing for the quarter that was just finished. So I'm conscious that this information probably feels a little bit stale. And so I'll obviously give an opportunity for questions around what I've already provided. But if it's okay, I will just give you a quick summary on what we're looking at in this next report. And then once that's been finalised, we can circulate it to you. We did have a couple of hazardous substance leaks that were notifiable to WorkSafe, injuries involved, and they did not come back to us with any further questions on them at this stage. Both of them involved sodium chloride. Where a pump had leaked, and so we've actually done a learning team as part of the follow-up from that to see what we could do to prevent that kind of issue from happening. The great thing is that our staff, they follow a procedure, they know how to deal with a spill. They're often learnings out of how we deal with that type of situation, which is a good thing. But we're just conscious of the fact that we always need to be treating any hazardous substances with respect. And in fact, the August due diligence workshop is going to actually focus on that risk. So I'll get somebody from Swim Zone to come and help me run that workshop. Another update is the fatigue policy has been finalised now, and that includes a section on emergency management, which we didn't have. It was a separate section previously. And as part of the process of reviewing that policy, we've done quite a significant amount of consultation with the water and wastewater operators. We know that this is a real challenge for them. And so prior to completing the policy, we got some feedback from them, and they actually were great. They gave us a whole lot of feedback. But we wanted to explore that further. So we've had 2 meetings with them. And actually Don attended the last one to really kind of work through the issues that they're raising around fatigue. And you can imagine that those issues are quite complex. They're not just about the length of the shift. They're about the things that cause people to need to work extra hours and work overnight and so on. So that's been a really interesting process. And there are quite a few items that they've helped us to prioritise the 3 Waters team are working through. Looking at training, we've run another round of training for managers and staff separately around managing and preventing bullying and harassment. Also run some training for our leaders around workplace violence prevention, and introduced a new training around safety around dogs that we ran primarily for our animal control team. And that went really well. So it's interesting when you try new training, but we got feedback that was good even from our experienced operators. So we'll be making that something that we provide for all those who need to deal with dogs in the future.
Thank you. Any questions?
Good, I'm happy to promote the information we received. It's obviously we've seen all of it at council.
I wanted to make one comment in relation to the behavioural incident type thing. Just making sure that we don't normalise that. It's not a small number, and when you see it regularly, it starts to become the new norm. And I'm just encouraging us to not always let that be our normal, have that as our normal thing. And our 13 manual handling and our 13 slips and trips, which add up to those 28. And we'll spend a lot of time on that manual handling and those slips and trips. And I'm just hoping that we dedicate time not to say that we haven't been in that behaviour space. So no comment. Just other than that, Adrian is moving. I'm happy to second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against one. Thank you. And thank you for acknowledging the cycle of the safety and wellness reports that don't always sit well in terms of the timing of these going. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the gap that also the knowledge that you gave us in terms of that gap of what's happening now. So thank you. We have item 8.10, which is the risk management update.
You all right, everyone? So we've been on quite a journey. I think the conversations we're having around risk are really improving, and feel that we're getting the benefit out of the process. In terms of the strategic risk, we've had one relatively group session, and then we've done sessions with the E-team. One's on the 26th of June and another one this afternoon, working through the strategic risks that were identified and I suppose altering them or making them more reading of it better, I suppose. So, and also finishing off that the risk molecule, if you like. So you identify what the risk is, what the consequences are, what the controls are. So that's a risk molecule. So we're at the stage of doing the controls, putting in the controls and assessing the effectiveness of controls to determine what the residual risk rating is.
Are you saying molecule?
Yeah. Yes.
I was just looking at little molecule.
Yeah, it's a molecule. So you've got your risk, then you've got what the consequences, and then what controls are. So those together make a good molecule, I suppose.
I just think the effect of oxygen or carbon might have on that molecule. Yeah. Or sodium. I feel that very explosive. Yeah, we're very much, or sodium, yes. I think we've certainly been on a journey of it, and I know from a council perspective, we always talk about risk, and of course we've already put controls in place in our mind. We don't think at the start of the risk without controls. We immediately, human nature dictates that some of us put more controls in to avoid that risk than others. Yeah, and it's quite a fascinating exercise, shall I say. Can be tedious for some, but yeah.
So the effectiveness of the controls is really important. And that determines what rating you give it as a residual risk.
And I guess it's the cost of those controls as well.
Yep.
Do you mind if I just add a comment? Is that okay? So that session that we had last week, I think that was really valuable, particularly as an exec team member. That gave us an opportunity to delve deeply into that risk and to look at those controls. And we highlighted in a lot of controls that we already are aware of, but also some new controls that we would like to put into place. So I think that's that conversation that's really valuable for us. For example, there's a lot of transactional type related controls. One in which we've got is our legislative compliance schedule. So we've got all the legislation there documented that we know that we need to adhere to. But how do we actually ensure our teams have got that covered, and how do we provide assurance to the executive team and even to our governance that we actually have that all under control? So we're looking to put some further controls in place, or some, in particular, some reporting to give us that assurance, and how we're actively monitoring that and what processes it'll all link back to as well. And this for us is about weak signal detection. So what weak signals are out there that we can actually pick up on and realise, hey, we've got some issues here that we need to look at and rectify. So it's been a really, really good process. We spent quite some time only working on 3 risks last week, but I think that's really valuable to us as an organisation. And like you said, we've got another session this afternoon, and we're certainly on track to bring this back to you for the 10th of September meeting.
I just want to touch on the weak signals because I was thinking about that guy. When I think about the signals I send to my partner Glenn, sometimes he doesn't pick up on those signals, and sometimes you need a kind of signal. Well, sorry, I'm not advocating signal or a control. Yeah. So yeah. So I just wanted to. I don't know why I went there. I'm sorry.
It's understanding that weak signals are, are they going to become a big thing? Yeah, this is the risk. Is there's something going on here? Do we address it now? Yeah. Because of the risk of it gets bigger.
Yeah. Because you get the weak signal, then you get the stronger one, and you ignore them, and then it puts up in your face.
Yeah. And I guess my point is sometimes people aren't astute enough to pick up on the weak signal, is where I was going with that. Yeah. So So hopefully we have different ways of getting that message through. Nonetheless, Kelly, you talked about the report, an update will come at the 10th of September, Hui. So do you foresee that we will have the top 19 or whatever it might be whittled down to at that stage? Okay, you're nodding.
Yes, that's correct. So our next step is to take the controls that have been identified by the executive team back to council and workshop it with the council, and then bring that back to you.
It's great progress. I just want to remind us that within the LTP it says that this committee ensures council has appropriate risk management and internal and financial control systems. And the reason why I keep pushing in this space is because it's difficult for this committee to give that assurance to council when we don't see as much as as we would like. No, so just recognising that we have a role and we want to do a role, and thank you for getting us along that journey to that space. Also within the LTP, it talks about business continuity, and that becomes the remit of the risk manager. So yes. Do you foresee that the business continuity plan updates will be part of this report or something separate?
So that's another whole big body of work, starting with business impact assessments and stuff like that. So I'm not working on it at the moment, but once we've got the risk process all bedded down, that process will start.
Yeah, so it's not actually, it's mentioned in the LTP, but it's also mentioned briefly in the public excluded document as well, but we're not outing anything from there. But thank you. I'm happy that we're progressing. I'm obviously always wanting us to progress faster than sometimes we can go, but I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. Unless there are any other questions, our recommendation is that the information be received. I'm happy to move. Can we please have a second? Hi, Joanne, just everything. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Good luck, Leslie. Thank you. Yeah. Do you envisage that we'll see pretty like project management?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we will.
Yes, that's great. And then this is for us team, item 8.11 on the agenda, which is the risk and assurance work program updated for July So you'll see that, I think it was Sandra that did a lot of work to actually put together this table. And in my mind, it makes it easier to understand what's coming. Yeah, so we can refine this over time. But does anyone have any feedback in relation to that particular table?
What's a guide? It's a good guide.
Some of this stemmed from me not being comfortable that we had a report that was due to come to this committee, but the response that we would get, which is what governance was told, was that it would come to the following one. And I didn't really have any understanding of the accountability of that skipping a meeting. And so I'm thinking that this is helpful to give us, similar to the project management dashboards, where something's not quite going to plan and what the reason for that is. So thank you for all the people that have been involved in this. And I think similar to the PM space, feedback will come over time and we'll shape it. As an example, when there are annual ones, maybe we can just have them as an annual list at the meeting that they're coming versus having to push them all the way through. Yeah, ideally, I would like to get to a space where we have this on one page as well.
One page is good.
Yeah, we like one page. But
One of the pages-
readable.
One of the changes that we've put in place is that we've got Leslie in her role as risk manager. So she's actually following up the report writers and gathering that information for you as well to be able to update this report with those reasons why they may be deferred or whatever it is.
Awesome, thank you. I'm happy to move that the information be received. Do we have a seconder?
Yep.
Mayor Adrian is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Can we, resolution to move into
Public executive.
we have Mayor moving, Matua Gary is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against,